Welcome to the Explainer. What if the absolute best advice for building a truly meaningful home wasn't written last year, but 2,000 years ago? Well, today we're unpacking a really powerful Jewish teaching on how to create a home that's built on generosity, dignity, and real connection. So this is the teaching we're going to dive into. It's from a classic collection of Jewish wisdom called Pirkei Avos. You might know it as Ethics of Our Fathers. And it gives us three, honestly, pretty revolutionary ideas for how we can build not just our homes, but our lives. All right, let's get into it. First, we're going to meet the sage who said this and get a feel for the world he lived in. Then we'll unpack each of his three pillars of advice, one by one. And finally, we'll see why this ancient wisdom is, believe it or not, more relevant now than ever. So who was the man behind this teaching? His name was Yose ben Yochanan, and he was known as a man of Jerusalem, which right away tells you he was a central figure. Right at the heart of the spiritual life of the Jewish people. Okay, so you got to picture the world he was living in. This was a time of intense cultural crisis. The influence of Greek culture, Hellenism, it was just everywhere, and it was a direct challenge to the traditional Jewish way of life. Just to maintain your values took immense strength and clarity. So this guy wasn't teaching from some peaceful academic ivory tower. He was on the front lines of a cultural battle. And that really captures the urgency of his time, doesn't it? These teachings weren't just nice ideas. They were spiritual survival strategies. He was giving people a practical, real-world framework to keep their values intact when the world was basically trying to pull them apart. So let's move to his first piece of advice. This is where he starts building the foundation for a truly meaningful home. And it's a concept that sounds so simple, but it is incredibly profound. The Hebrew here is patuach l'revacha. Now, that means so much more than just leaving the door unlocked. It implies this sense of abundance, a real generosity of spirit. It's about creating an atmosphere where people feel they aren't just guests, but are genuinely, warmly wanted.
The classic model for this, the image everyone thinks of, is the tent of Abraham from Jewish tradition. It was open on all four sides. And why? So that any traveler, coming from absolutely any direction, would immediately see an open entrance and just know they were welcome. It's an image of proactive, totally unconditional hospitality.
Okay, so the second pillar builds on this idea of welcome, but it takes it to a much deeper, more personal, and frankly, a more challenging level. Now, notice the specific wording here. He doesn't say, give charity to the poor, or you should donate to the poor. He says, make them bnei beitecha, literally, members of your household. Treat them like their family. That is a radical call to completely erase the line between giver and receiver. The traditional commentaries, they really dig into this, and they explain that this is all about preserving human dignity. The goal isn't just to help. It's to do it in a way that makes the other person feel respected, feel whole. It's the difference between a handout that creates dependency and a hand up that actually builds self-worth. It's all about making them feel like they truly, truly belong. All right, now we get to the third pillar. And this one is, at first glance, probably the most challenging one for a modern audience to hear. But if we dig just a little bit deeper, we're going to find a timeless piece of wisdom about our relationships. Okay, this line, it can be jarring to our modern ears, for sure. But to really understand it, we have to zoom in on a single, crucial Hebrew word, because that one word changes everything. This is not a prohibition on speaking. It's a caution about a specific type of speech. The word the sage uses is sicha. This does not mean all conversation. In Hebrew, it specifically refers to that light, casual stuff, what we'd call idle chatter or small talk. It's a totally different word from, say, dibor, which implies a much more substantive, meaningful discussion. And this right here illustrates the key distinction. The teaching isn't forbidding meaningful conversation with your spouse. That's absolutely essential. It's a caution against building a relationship that's based only on the superficial, on small talk that never, ever leads to a deeper connection. So the crucial point here is that this is a call for intentionality. It's about protecting the sacredness of your core relationships by investing in substance. And as the teaching clarifies, it's also about maintaining wise and appropriate boundaries with people who aren't your spouse. Just recognizing that human nature, well, it requires some guardrails. So the big question, how can this 2,000-year-old blueprint for the home help us live better, more meaningful lives today? Well, it turns out it speaks directly to some of our biggest modern challenges. Think about it.
each principle is a direct antidote to a modern problem. In a world that's getting more and more lonely, we're told to practice personal hospitality, to actually invite people into our homes. In an age of impersonal charity and social media posts, we're told to prioritize dignity. And in a culture that is just drowning in superficial digital chatter, we're called to pursue depth in our most important relationships. And when you put all three principles together, you don't just get three separate pieces of advice. You get a whole vision for a home. It's a call for wise stewardship of your physical space, your resources, and your emotional intimacy. It's a home that can become a true sanctuary. You know, this ancient teaching pushes us to ask a really powerful question. Is our home just a place to live, or is it a platform for generosity, for dignity, and for deep connection? This 2,000-year-old blueprint challenges us to build a home that doesn't just shelter us, but actually changes the world, one guest and one real conversation at a time.